Good morning, folks. Welcome back to our third installment of Living a Line, live from Jerusalem, folks. I want to thank all the people that shared last week, and we'd encourage you to share and like our post again. Folks, I want to thank, we've had people tuning in all around the globe once again. We've had Mary in Glendale, California, Stacy in Toronto, Canada, Tati and Abraham in Venezuela, Aldo in Brazil, Haiti Bjorndal in Norway, and Eugene in Nigeria, Africa. Folks, we are getting people all around the globe. We are so excited for this Living Aligned book by Rabbi Baruch Gartner. Rabbi, how are you doing today?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Dan, thank you so much. I can't express my gratitude towards you. It's all on your merit.
It's a joy. It's my joy. It's my joy to meet you. It's my joy to read your material, and more than just read your material, let it impact my life and actually teach alignment. And alignment is so key.
You're too kind. Too kind.
Oh, I don't think the words of Hashem are so valuable and life altering. We need to integrate. We really do. And for most of us, it's about understanding. If we don't understand it, it's hard to integrate. And all I can say is that the way your book is written, with examples and then stories and then summary, it brings it alive in a way that, to me, actually is very, very digestible and decipherable, and then easy to implement. And living aligned, especially when I came down to the end of the book, I felt, like I told you last week, I felt such a peace. I felt at rest with living, that, hey, this is not as difficult as the drama that so weighs on people's shoulders and minds and in their lives. And, with the entanglements of the cares of this world, all I can say is that your book actually helps shift focus and align where we're supposed to be.
I really appreciate your words, but I also know that a book is a book. And
it is.
It's very, very important for those that read the book to try and, quote unquote, bring it down. And that means learning it with another friend, or starting a group where the ideas are brought up as a group and to implement those ideas. Right now, I started a group of young men. We're doing now marriage aligned. We're applying the principles of living aligned to marriage. And we're actually in the same place that we are in this session, the concept of you are here. And it's so important for us to bring down the ideas. A book is a book. We're trying to implement it in our lives.
Yes, Rabbi, you mentioned last week that today we're going to talk about the map, you are here. Can you elaborate what you mean by you are here?
Yeah. So it's wonderful when a person has a vision of where he wants to go, whether it's a business, or whether it's your marriage, whether it's with your kids, whatever it is in life, your body. You want a picture of your physique. But we all have to know we have a map. You need another reference point, and that is that big you are here sign. And oftentimes we're not so realistic when it comes to reality, where the rubber hits the road. And I like to say all the time, quote a very wise person who said that we are not actually human beings looking for spirituality, but we're rather spiritual beings. We're all souls having a human experience. So important to understand what it means to be a human being. We are not angels, and we're not going to be angels. And it's important for us to know, what does it mean to be human? By default, we have passion. By default, we have bodies. By default, we're needy. We're programmed to be needy, as we talked about before. So knowing where you are is the second most important point of the map. I don't know which one's more important. If you want to go from where you are to where you want to go, you have to know both points.
Yeah. We as human beings, we can be a little messy with all our emotions and whatnot. But I think in our day and age, so many people they get ahead of themselves on where they want to go, and they forget where they're really at. And sometimes that can bring a lot of unnecessary drama, especially if people are overinflating their own ego or overinflating who they are. But as people, we've got to hang on to those promises and hang on to that goal that we have in mind, because sometimes it takes a lot of energy and a lot of hard work to get to a goal that's worth our time, energy, and resources.
But once again, if you think that you're halfway there and you're really way back, I said to the guys the other night when we met, I said, you basically start in jail and you got to roll doubles to get out of jail. Even before you even start the game,
right.
You could spend years trying to get those doubles.
Oh,
but it's
boy.
so important to understand the reality of human existence.
Yeah. So according to what you're saying, reality is to know who you are, know that you're far away.
That's correct. That's correct. The consciousness, Rabbi Nachman, in what I consider the beginning Torah, when people come to me and say, can you learn with me some of Rabbi Nachman's teachings? So it's a big book. It's a deep book. It has a lot of secrets in it. And if you start from the first teaching, you could be overwhelmed. So I have something called a guide. I'm actually would like to work on it to make it a little bit more user-friendly, a guide for beginners learning of Rav Nachman's book,
beautiful.
Maran. And I start with the first teaching is called The Letter. It's Torah 48 in the second part of Likutei Maran. And it reads like a letter. And Rav Nachman says in this teaching something really, really, really important, profound, and not so easy to understand. He says when a person begins to enter into service of God, the first thing that happens is he feels far away. He feels like he's being pushed away and that God's not even looking at him. And the question is, it doesn't seem fair. No. Here's a person he just woke up. He's ready to go. He wants to get started. He wants to begin his journey to the goal. And the first thing that happens to him is he feels distant. So I always like to bring a parable. Just imagine you come to Jerusalem and you enter into the school of your choice and you meet this really great rabbi and he invites you for your first Friday night dinner in the Jewish home. It's going to be so holy. It's going to be so great. And you buy a nice bottle of wine and you put your best clothes on and you take a shower and you're ready to go. And you find the address and you knock on the door and you wait to see this big smiley face. And you open the door and all of a sudden the rabbi goes, whop, right in your stomach.
Oh,
That's the rude awakening. That not often, according to Rav Nachman, that's what happens. Now, it doesn't seem fair, This is the first night. What's going on? So there are quite a few ways to understand what's going on. One of the ways to understand this is when a person wakes up and he starts to acquire an understanding, he's getting clarity on the map. One of the first things he recognizes is his absolute distance, the distance between him and his creator. And that often is a rude awakening. And that's one of the ideas. The person has just got to understand by default, God created man at a distance. And it has to be understood what's the purpose.
Yeah, I noticed you shared that well in the book, and you brought around a great purpose for distance, and I I really think I need to review it to really totally grasp it. But there's a loving reason for that, and I think that has to do that we really could not handle the full bore, all out realities the way they truly are, and I think God.
Well, there's a
Hashem.
there's a lot here, and that's part of what we have to discuss tonight. In the idea of you are here. What's the reality? What's the purpose of the distance?
Well, I noticed before you made a video a while back where you said a parable about a king and his son, the
Yeah,
prince.
beautiful parable.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it seems that it's aligned with what we're talking about now. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, it was a while ago. It's a beautiful idea. It's brought down in the early Hasidic masters. Explain one of the concepts of why man is created in such a low, dark, physical world, far away from his Father in heaven. There was a king that had a son, the prince, and as he's growing up, oftentimes the teenagers don't exactly understand the parents, and just because he was a prince, it was no different. He couldn't understand why his father did certain things, and it grew, his questions, until his behavior got to the point where the king saw it fit to exile the prince. Now, when he took the prince and exiled him, he didn't just send him away. He literally sent him to one of the worst places possible, the place where all of the dissidents are, the people who are anti the king. So when the prince got there, they immediately took him because they saw, wow, this is our salvation. Maybe we can make a coup with the prince. And the prince aligned with them because they also had tremendous questions on the king. And they made a very, very tight relationship right from the beginning. After a while, the prince started to understand these people, and these people were not so friendly. They were actually talking about killing the king, and not just killing the king, but killing the whole royal family. Not to make matters worse, he started to find out that these people were not just interested in replacing the government with a better government, they were actually anarchists. They wanted no government. They wanted anarchy. Then he really saw that these people were the type of people that were going around just doing things arbitrarily evil.
Wow.
He really feared for his life because he realized that now he was in this dark place and tight friends with people who were really bad. Didn't know what to do. Started to look around and realized that, you know what? These bad people, they're not everyone. There are quite a few people who are just being dragged along. And among the populace, there's simple people who are not bad at all.
Right.
So he started talking to these people, and he realized that if he could convince them of the goodness of the king, that he could make a rebellion in his place and redeem himself, get out of this. The more he talked about the goodness of the king, the more his love for the king started to overcome him. He talked and he talked and he worked and he worked until he got up enough people that he actually rose up against the evil people and he killed them and brought this whole distant land that was once at bay with the king. He brought them back to the king. And then he realized in retrospect that the whole setup he wasn't something to get upset about, but it was really all designed by the king. Because the king had no other way to deal with this dark, distant place except to send in his beloved son, who at the time needed this
Right.
to grow, to yearn, and to want to come back to the king. So essentially, our benevolent, loving Father in heaven takes our soul and says, "You know what? You're not doing enough here. We don't want another angel. We want to send you down there. We want you to be far away. We want you to yearn, we want you to experience physicality, and we want you actually to yearn from the distance, and we want you to bring back all of that important world."
Wow.
And be one with the king. Essentially, I'm not going to talk about it now, but that's the secret of the tabernacle, the raising up of all the gold, the riches, the world has to offer. It's an amazing idea.
That is amazing. I know in the book you also share about in your book you share about a farmer who sold his farm because he wanted to be close to the king.
Yeah.
And then he eventually began to work in the palace because of the yearning, and he moved into a place near the palace that wasn't close enough. He had to get a job there, and he gets there, and then he becomes the fire banker for the in the palace, building the beautiful analogy the way he did. And then he gets to meet the king. He becomes such a servant, and he meets the king, and he's connected. And then the king allows him to have a little portal so he can see the king whenever he wants. And it brings him such joy, and he's content, and he's satisfied. But you'd think that and that alone would be enough for a purpose. But then you had a little story in there, how the prince was corrected by the king, and how that farmer even became a venue for that yearning and resolution and resolving. Beautifully put, Rabbi. Can I throw a question at you? We have
Sure.
one of our viewers. I believe it's Taddy down in Venezuela. She says, "Shalom, dear Rabbi Baruch. Continuing with the questions from last week, a single turn of change or making teshuvah can help us to achieve a little level on growing our aligned life better with Hashem. Once you can achieve that level, of course, always there are more things to improve. So, in our goal of living aligned, we should continue with those that are harder to reach." That's the question. She says,
Okay,
"Thank you, Rabbi."
a wonderful question. And I actually remember the beginning of this question last week. The idea is that because our Creator is infinite, so we have an infinite journey to go.
Yes.
We're not necessarily required to finish the job. On the other hand, it says in Ethics of the Fathers, but we're not able to just quit because the job is too great for us. Nevertheless, our concern is to constantly compound our steps in the right direction. That's the concept. We just made a video about this idea of compounding the good. It's important for a person not to try and bite off more than they can chew. We have to take small steps towards our Creator. We have to do the next thing that makes sense for us. We have to literally on a daily basis think to ourselves, what is it possible that I could do? We want to achieve. We don't want to. We are at a distance, and there are almost infinite things that we can do to come closer. So the answer, in my opinion, is that we want to do the small things. We do the things that we can feel like we're succeeding, because it's so important for a person to feel like he is succeeding. So therefore, I believe that it's really important, and this is what I tell all people: pick things that are within your capability, achieve them little and little, empower yourself with the ability to change. Convince yourself that you have the ability to move forward. And
Right.
as you move forward, you'll be able to take bigger steps, and you'll look back after a year and say, wow, I can't believe that I overcame that. And that's really what it's all about.
Wow. Growth. and yearning. So just amazing stuff. I mean, the distance exists so that we have yearning, and that yearning for Hashem, and we can begin to grow little by little and make advances. That's amazing. Now, Rabbi, you've got will is the definition of rason.
Ratzon.
It seems to be a very important attribute. Can you elaborate?
Well, the really the word ratzon, the base root of the word is ratz, which means to run. Our will is what allows us to run. It's really something that can't be measured. On the other hand, it's the most powerful part of the human being. It is the essence of our soul. Our soul is endowed with will, and at its root, our will is to do the will of Hashem. And like it says that our will is to do God's will, but what's holding us back is the leavening in the bread, in the dough. Our job as human beings is to uncover that will. At our root, it's our inner desire to connect with God. That's the running, the running of the will. The Baal Shem Tov says a beautiful idea. In English, we say, where there's a will, there's a way. So the Baal Shem Tov tells us the secret to this, because the will and the way, the letters of the word ratzon spell tzinor. Tzinor is a pipe or a way. So when a person has a strong will, he forges the conduit through which he's going to travel on the path. If a person exercises his will, he will create the way to get there. It corresponds to the highest of the 10 sefirot of Keter, the crown, and it corresponds to the name of Hashem, Ekyeh, I will be. In fact, when a person immerses himself in a ritual mikvah, and so the Arizal tells us that he should literally keep in mind this name of Hashem, Ekyeh, in its spelled out form, which is the Aleph spelled out Aleph Lamed Pei, which is 111, the numerical value. And then Hey is Hey, which is 10. The Yud is Yud Vav Daled, which is 20. And then Hey, which is 10. It all up to 151, which is the exact numerical value of mikvah, Mem Kuf Vav Hey. So essentially, every single day a person begins with the will to be. It's as if today I don't have a life, and I'm beginning I'm willing into being my day.
Wow. Amazing stuff. I'm just chatting with some of the people online. Poor Eliana down in Africa is having trouble with her internet tuning in. So I assured her we're trying to capture this. I've got some Facebook messages popping in. Taddy does say thank you so much, Rabbi, and amen, for answering her question.
And I want you to tell her thank you on air for all the help that she's been giving us. She's giving us technical support and just
oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, she's down in near
with her husband Avi.
Yes, her husband Avi, and they're right. I had a chat with him this week. They're way down in
Colombia.
Is it Bogota? Yeah, right outside of Bogota. That's a huge place. I had a chat with her husband and let him know some of the people I knew down there from years ago. But all I can say is I'm glad to hear of the support, folks. Keep sharing and liking this sort of message. Rabbi Gartner pours out his heart with this material, so feel free. Ask some questions. We'll try and get them before the rabbi. Rabbi, in the book,
you
mentioned a saying by Rabbi Nachman. if you believe you can mess up, believe that you can rectify. Now, I love that saying. I mean, can you expound on that? Because this is profound.
Yeah, the truth is that not so long ago, my beautiful daughter and her my son-in-law, they got us a little present, wine decanter, glass, and it's on the table. And
Right.
two of my grandchildren, Shalomer and Nachman, who learn in the Breslev school, they're playing around, and I said, "Boys, please don't play with the ball in the living room."
Right.
And sure enough,
Oh, no.
off the wall, on the table, and boom, on the
Oh,
floor. The decanter is now in 1,000 pieces.
oh,
And
my.
little Shalomer, who learns, like I said, he knows a little bit about Reb Nachman. So he says, Zaidi, what's the problem? If you believe that you can mess up, believe that you can fix. So, so anybody who looks at a broken decanter on the floor knows, it's not so easy to fix something. And essentially, you'll never be able to put that together, not with crazy glue, nothing. So what does Reb Nachman really mean when he says, if you believe that you can mess up, that you can fix? I don't understand. We're not only are we cast down into physicality, most of us have messed up by the time we're 20 in countless ways. So how's a person supposed to navigate from back, from where he is now to being close to God? What's Reb Nachman mean? If you believe you, it's not the same thing. So I believe that really what Reb Nachman wants us to focus on is not the fixing and not the breaking, but rather on the word believing. That many of us have convinced ourselves that we're broken, that we're distant, that we've messed up, and that there's no repair. We have
Beyond
absolute
hope.
faith in that. That's like that. We're holding on to that like it's our God. That's
Wow.
our religion. We are convinced that we have been victimized by
Yes.
arbitrary forces of the
Yes.
world, cruel people,
Yes.
arbitrarily who have acted on me to break me. So Rav Nachman says, well, hey, if you have such faith in the fact that you can distance yourself from God and be broken, well, that means you have faith. Have the same faith that you can fix. Have the
So,
same faith that there's hope. Have the same faith that the same creator that created the situation can give you the power to turn around, as we just talked about, and keep turning around and keep walking in the right direction and reach your goals. So I told this over to my oldest son, who's already a big Talmud Chacham, and he says, Dad, Tati, that's a very nice idea, but I think you can take it one step further. And that is, according to what you're saying, well, fixing is really, really, really hard. And you should just have belief that you can do it. But in all truth, to fix a decanter is in the physical world, it's not so easy. But really, our benevolent creator prepared for us returning, which I hate to use the word repentance, but it means basically turning around. And that is really just as easy as breaking the decanter. So it turns out that really, 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 even though it looks like we're super, super far away, but really all it takes is the attitude of turning around. And really in the spiritual world, a person is not so far away. In fact, this is also an amazing story that talks about this idea of distance. That's our subject tonight. That there was a very righteous man who in his righteousness started to introspect on all of his life and even the good deeds that he had done. A righteous person basically wakes up in the morning, does only righteous things. And when he started to pick apart his day, his life, he started to realize that everything was tainted with possible ulterior motives for honor, recognition. And he really started to fall into depression, because the more he looked, the more he found that there was nothing 100%. He wasn't really interested in being human. He was interested in being an angel. Anyway, so he got very, very depressed, but he kept looking. And then he actually found one thing about him that was untainted. And that was the fact that God created him, gave him life, and brought him close to him, and put him in a situation that he was Jewish and that he had all of these mitzvahs to do, and it had nothing to do with, it was his birthright, it was what he was given, it was a gift, and it had nothing to do with who he was. And he started to dance. And he started to dance and dance and dance and dance, and he came to great, great joy, and in his joy, he collapsed and fainted. As he faints, he's now leaves his body, and he has this vision. He's running, he's flying in the spiritual worlds, flying in the spiritual worlds. Can't believe it, supersonic flying like a rocket. And then all of a sudden, he comes back to where he was, and he wakes up, and he sees that in reality, he had only moved a hair's breadth. And Rav Nachman teaches us in this story, he says that in essence, in this world, we cannot really know what the ramifications of our little movement is in the higher worlds. It appears that we're only moving little by little, inches, but in reality, all of the movement that we're making here in the physical world is like running thousands of miles in the spiritual worlds. So, once again, being human is the reality, and a person has to acclimate himself to being human. Once again, we are not humans looking for spirituality. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. It's so important to realize that there's a benefit. Hashem specifically put us here to yearn and to realize that all the difficulties of human existence is to create resistance in order that we have the pain and gain. There's no pain, there's no gain.
So if you believe you can mess it up, be it your laundry and you iron it out and you wash it, or your dishes and you dirty it, you can wash it. And if we can just grasp that, we mess something up, we can rectify those simple things. We can also begin to work on our lives in the same way. And no matter how little or insignificant the action is, it's a big step. It could be a big step in the heavenlies and bless others. So don't give up believing. Don't give up believing. If you mess it up, believe that you can rectify it, and there's no point in your life that you should be able to say, I'm hopeless and I'm without, because Hashem is always near, I think it says in Torah, and yet that infinite gap is there for yearning, and that yearning is so that we begin to make steps. It sounds as all we need to do is will. To have the ratzon, don't we have to do actions also?
100%. The importance of will is the base of everything. We don't want to do things out of guilt. We don't want to do things being forced and out of unnecessary fear. We want to activate our will to understand that everything that Hashem has given to us is a conduit of connection. He's not commanding us, he's actually giving us ways to connect with him. But certainly the step after aligning our will with him is to certainly do. And in fact, that is what I hope to will address next Sunday. The idea, if we've covered the goal and we've covered the point of beginning in your human distance, so the next thing that we have to talk about are strategies and how we're going to navigate from where we are to our goal. So doing is imperative. But once again, it's so important for a person to activate that will to align, the will to yearn. The distance creates, in fact, there's a beautiful idea brought down that from the Zohar. It explains that our leader, our teacher, Moshe, passed away at the time of Mincha, which is the time of wills. And it explains to us that the highest human being reached this climax of human existence in a state of wills. That is the goal of every human being. Essentially, will is not just the beginning, it's also the final state. We all are going to leave this world, and we have to essentially practice willing, because that is the final state of human existence. It's the climax of human existence, and essentially that is the essence of the third meal. Each Shabbos, at the third meal, is the time of the passing away of Moshe. It's the time of wills. It's the climax of Shabbos. It's the climax of human existence, where a person's sitting in a state of yearning, and he doesn't even know exactly what he's yearning for, because once again, our Creator is infinite, and essentially He's above all wisdom, and that's the essence of existence, the climax of human existence. That's the level of Moshe at the time of passing away, will of wills. But nevertheless, the way to the next step is the process of aligning your will with the Creator, and to follow the rules, to follow the directives, and move forward. That's next week, God willing.
Wow, that's exciting stuff, Rabbi. I'm amazed at how simple you've made it in this book. How we can, begin to know where we're at, accept where we're at, because that's reality, right? And focus on our goals, and then make the steps. Exercise our will. We are here to be alive, and we are amongst the living, and we can do it. We can do it alive. Now, I have another two question from someone. This is from Taddy again. If Kabbalah can be incorporated in a very average life person, which one could be the basic level to align our soul's levels? Neshama to create, Ruah to form, and Nefesh to act. He says, thank you so much, Rab. You could elaborate.
Well, the concept of the book Living Aligned is that we're taking Kabbalistic principles and we're trying to bring them down and make them relevant. That's essentially what the Hasidic masters tried to do. They were experts in Kabbalah, and they explain the deepest secrets of what the Kabbalah stands for in our practical lives. So essentially, the next class will be almost entirely trying to explain how these dance steps of the Kabbalah can be integrated into our lives on a real basis. You know, that's really the goal of the sessions, is to come to the end where we actually have practical. You know, it's important to get clarity on the map, but obviously traversing the territory is the real fruit. And the way we do that is by using the concepts and implementing them in our lives. So once again, she asked a specific question. What she asked with,
she said, well, if Kabbalah could be incorporated in a very average life person, which one could be the basic level to align our soul's level?
Well, so every single person, no matter where he is, can implement the greatest, deepest secrets of Kabbalah. They just have to be aware of the fact that it is Kabbalah, and essentially makes their actions that much more profound. Many of us, let's say, just a small thing, a very small thing. You're walking down the street and a beggar puts out his hand. Okay? So, okay, a lot of people give charity. You reach into your pocket, okay, and you give the person a coin. Oh, that's very nice. You've just done charity. And
yes,
the Chavetz Chaim says it makes a difference whether you have intention to fulfill a divine directive or you're just giving charity because he's, you know, it's a nice thing to do. It's a custom of the world, or you're doing it because you want to align with the divine. That's very nice. But what if, when you reach your hand into the pocket and you pull out a coin, and you have intention that that coin is like the first letter of God's name, the Yud, and you take it with your 5 fingers, and your 5 fingers are like the numerical value of the next letter of God's name, the Hey. You stretch out your arm that looks like the next letter of God's name, a Vav, and the beggar opens his hand, which is also at 5 fingers, which is the numerical value of a Hey. You've just completed God's name in that mundane act. And
wow,
you had intention that you're unifying God's name and bringing the world one step closer to its final redemption. So that is something that every single person does on a daily basis, and he doesn't have recognition that that's called a unification. The tzaddikim, everything they do, they have these intentions. So
deliberate.
That's one of the ideas that we bring down in the book. That one of the ideas that a person, if he becomes aware of the map, understands the significance of what a human being is capable of, if he just has a little bit of clarity, a little bit of knowledge on our role in not only rectifying ourselves, but rectifying the world. That's what we'll be talking about more next time.
That is such exciting stuff, and I love the way you just put that analogy together about the hand reaching in and putting out. That is so beautiful, Rabbi. I mean, we see today so many. I know in Canada, if you go to the subways in Vancouver, there's always somebody playing music or with a box open, and you know, I guess what I'm learning more is to just not do things as a second nature or a mindless act, but let it have deliberate action, deliberate intent, and let Hashem's light shine through that.
100%. You know, one of the biggest problems with youth today, and even everybody, is that we're not exactly sure what the meaning of life is. So therefore, life becomes meaningless, and the more there's no meaning in life, there's no spirit in it. There's no reason to do it. And this is a very big subject that Viktor Frankl discusses in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And we know clearly that the people that went through this terrible Holocaust, they were divided into two groups. There were people that had meaning, and there were people that didn't have meaning. If a person didn't understand that there was purpose to life, it was very easy for them to give up. But those people that wanted to live for whatever reason they decided, whether they wanted to revenge or they wanted to bring children into the world, whatever their reason was, they were the people that had the power to keep going. They're the people that their meaning was their will to live.
Ratzon.
That was the Ratzon. So we can find infinite meaning in life if we just search and study the ancient texts, because we are in such a right position as human beings to make world change. We just have to believe that even though I'm just one person and nobody sees what I'm doing, there's a spiritual realm behind what I'm doing. And I have the power in my will, in my attitude, and of course with my actions to literally press the buttons that bring about world change. And that's the subject of next week's talk.
Wow, it sounds like we've got a beautiful, beautiful show lined up for next week. I'm excited for that, and I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to share. So can we do it just a quick summary, or would that be too much to ask?
No problem.
You know, it's all about the map. You are here. We need to be ready to understand what we're up for next week. But Rabbi, I'm blessed. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Well, okay. I once you want a summary, I'll give you a summary. In Hashem's infinite mercy, He incarnated us as human beings, distant from Him, very far away. And He knew exactly what He was doing. Exactly. Some of us also were given difficult situations, not just being regular human beings. Some people were born handicapped. Some people were born with difficult life situations. Some people were born poor. Some people were born with extreme situations. Nevertheless, we believe with perfect faith that all the difficulties or the obstacles, the barriers that are there to help us yearn for our Creator and to build our strength, if we endure and we overcome these obstacles, we will be at a better vantage point to understand our Creator than even the angels. In the end of times, the angels are going to ask human beings, they're going to say, what's going on in the inner chambers over there? Because angels are programmed just to do one thing, serve God. They don't have they don't have passions, they don't have to make a living, they don't have to raise children. All they have to do is sing, 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 sing. But we have to overcome all these difficulties. Therefore, we become superhuman beings if we endure, if we find meaning, if we exercise our will, and we keep putting one foot over the next, we reach our goals. We become that human being that we were meant to be, and we live life the way it's meant to be lived.
Wow. Just amazing stuff. Carlos from South Texas sends his blessings to you, Rabbi.
Shalom, Carlos.
He wants to know whenever you're close to South Texas, we need more spiritual light down there. They're suffering persecution. Keep them in your prayers down there. I'm so looking forward to next week, Rabbi. But even savoring the moment today, I find the entire book, Living a Line, and the classes you're sharing allow us to have not a compass that's just spinning out of control, but one that actually has a bearings, functions, and allows us to have a heading, stay in reality, know where we're at, and begin to take the step. So I find today, if you believe you can mess something up, believe that you can rectify it and do something about it. I'm just touched.
Thank you so much, Dan, for hosting me. And Hashem should pour down you infinite blessings.
Oh, I'm blessed enough. I'm blessed enough, Rabbi. Shall we call it quits for today? Are we all set for next week?
Next
folks,
week.
I want to thank you for tuning in. Please like this message, share it online. And Rabbi, any closing words before we head out?
Everyone should have a wonderful week. and look forward to seeing you next Sunday.
See you later, folks.